So, gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. Keith, I'll start with you. Tell us about the election and this new appointment.
The election was a testament to our hard work and the people around the state who was a part of my caucus. We had a unanimous election, and it was fulfilling. I was it was exhilarating that we got some stuff done, and Charlene, you don't know what I went through with this caucus in the beginning, and now we got everybody on the same page, and we did some good work last year. We helped Kamala. We endorsed Kamala in the beginning.
Kamala, it's Kamala. Come on, Kamala.
Yeah, that's her sword, so she knows how to pronounce it.
Yeah, like a comma.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, we endorsed her when nobody else did, and then she acquiesced and moved on, and then we endorsed Joe Biden. And I get so tickled, Charlene, about how Jim Clyburn saved Joe Biden. Yes, he did, but he was hedging his bet before the New Hampshire primary. When the Black Caucus came in and endorsed Joe, he went on national television, said this African-American group out of Michigan endorsed me. And he took that endorsement. It was all in the national media. So what I'm trying to say, we had a successful year. Our candidate won. We raised a lot of money. And I feel so great about what we did. And now we're moving into our next phase about how we restore the Black family. And that's where my emphasis is going to be this term. It's how we repair the greatness of what we used to have. So that's about that. And my new appointment, we haven't had our first meeting, but it's all about business. And when I get involved in something, it's just not a name only. It's about getting something done.
So what is the actual position that she appointed you to? I saw the flyer. It looked really nice. I don't have it in front of me.
It's a position, Committee on African American Business.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
That's excellent. Speaking of, Black History Month, and Michael and I talked about this a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a gentleman, I call him a gentleman, I've never met him, he seems like a gentleman, who has declared his candidacy for the governor of Michigan. He is African American, and I'm not talking about John James. This is another Black guy. And he was on Let It Rip recently with Sherry Gay Gaibo. And they had him there because, he's a guy who said if he's elected, the first thing he would do is to abolish Black History Month. He sees no need for it at all. That upset a lot of people. Michael, I think what we'll do, we'll play the clip.
Okay.
And then we'll come back. And Michael, I want you to chime in on it. And then Keith will chime in.
Okay.
Let's go ahead. My other Michael in studio, my engineer, let's play that clip.
Austin, is Black America History Month, do you believe that celebrating it is that somehow alienating other races?
Oh, absolutely. It absolutely is. And I say this as an American because I believe that all Americans should be celebrated. It doesn't matter what background you come from. That's the position I'm coming from. Now, when I say I'm going to cancel Black History Month, I'm not just talking about Black History Month. I'm talking about every other history month that we have here in this state. Michigan is made up of so many people from very different backgrounds.
Hold on.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this.
Yes,
do you sense that there's no benefit to learning about Black history?
Now, there is a benefit of learning from that as an American history, because it is American history essentially. That's what it is. All I'm saying is, if you say to somebody who is from a Polish background here in Michigan that they should learn about Black History Month, that immediately that is not what unites us as Americans. But if you something that any person can connect to, any child can connect to that. because it's not dividing, it's not polarizing, and that's the perspective that I'm coming from.
All right, well, let me ask
That's
Sherry.
the best thing that can happen to Michigan.
Well, let me bring
take sentiment out of
All right, let me bring Sherry in here. Apparently, I think what Austin is saying is he wants to incorporate Black History Month with overall history classes and talk about other races, etc. I guess what's wrong with that?
Well, so that's not what he said initially, and I think it's a backtrack. What Austin is trying to do, basically said he would get rid of African American history, and African history is American history, and it's been the omission of our story for too long that has caused our country to be so polarized. So it's very important, and if he's running for governor, he doesn't have the wherewithal or the latitude to get rid of African American history. He should be advocating for greater inclusion so that we can deal with the racial barriers and polarization that we have in this country and in this state. He's only taken a play out of the book of Trump and trying to say something so outlandish that he lands the attention of the media. And I guess, he has prospered in that regard. But it's foolishness. It's a waste of time. And it further polarizes people that should be coming together to highlight all of our stories. And it's the omission, unfortunately, of African-American history that's taken too long after 401 years of being in this country.
Let me bring Austin back in here real quick. Austin, just so you know, I would think a lot of Black voters who are listening to you right now are going to be pretty mad at you for even thinking about Black History Month being eliminated. But don't you think? How do you address that this is simply just a publicity stunt, and that your campaign may very well be alienating voters?
No, not at all. This is actually a way to unite people. And anyone who thinks this is a way to divide people, it's just being sentimental. This is a straightforward point of view. I'm a very pragmatic person. And if you look at this, I'm not backtracking on anything. If you listen to all of the interviews that I've given after that, I've said exactly the same thing. And I'm saying the same thing now. I'm going to cancel it because it further divides people. The only thing that should unite us, it should be the American identity. And that's what I'm going to say.
I think we've heard enough. Of
Yeah, we've heard enough.
He's sort of getting on my daggone nerves here.
Well, he's.
I don't know where this clown came from.
He came from Nigeria. So let's break this down historically, because in that whole conversation, nobody in that conversation mentioned Dr. Carter G. Woodson and the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History that he co-founded September 9th, 1915 in Chicago. When we deal with Negro History Week, which started the week of February 7th, 1926, the second week in February. Then in 1976 became Black History Month, which is today African American History Month. We're dealing with something that we created. Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who was a historian, he had a PhD from Harvard in 1912 in American history. He was the second African American to graduate with a PhD from Harvard, the first of African slave descent. He was an educator, and he understood that our people did not know their history. So he created Negro History Week, which was a cultural celebration for us to celebrate our history. It was never supposed to be the only time of the year that we studied our history, okay? And Negro History Week had a focus on African American youth, okay? Because Dr. Woodson said that African Americans were ignorant of their history. The parents, the children, etc., were ignorant of their history. So what he did was this second week in February, this was supposed to be a period of time that school children had demonstrated what they had been studying year round. This was supposed to be the time of the year you're going to have all types of celebrations taking place, and you have different forms and things like this. But this was supposed to be the time of the year that African American school children demonstrated what they have been studying year round. It was never supposed to be the only time of the year we study our history. And every year going back to 1928, there's been an annual theme for African American History Month. So if people go to asala.org, and Asala is the official website of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History.
How do you spell that?
ASALH. asalh.org, asalh.org. Okay. If you go to Asala, they have the information dealing with the annual themes going back to 1928, actually. And then this year's annual theme is the Black family representation, identity, and diversity. And the annual theme.
That's what Keith Williams was talking about, the Black family. So I'll just digress for just a second. Hold on there, Michael.
All right.
That's where we need to be focused. What Keith, this is, you see how brilliant Michael is with this, because once he gets going, he knows so much. He's like a walking encyclopedia. The Black family, we were talking about that earlier today, Keith, on the phone. You said that would be the focus of your organization, the Michigan, what you're doing here. Black Caucus, yes.
I've been knowing Michael long. That's my friend. We
Yes.
grew up in politics together. He's a brilliant brother, and everybody should listen to him because he knows his history. Charlene, that guy is a buffoon, and this is a publicity stunt, and we shouldn't even be wasting our time on somebody like that. We just lending credibility to that clown.
Well, he didn't get any credibility here because, everybody's laughing. I want people to know who he is so that they can discredit him.
Yeah.
I think he's already discredited himself. I don't think we're going to hear from him. I think he'll drop out of the race anyway. I don't think you're going to hear a lot about him because he's,
Republican Party is always searching for somebody to fit their identity and our race, and they came up with that guy. But this is the deal, Charlene. I was just reflecting on my old neighborhood one day, and I said everything that I learned from men that were great men that lived in those communities. I remember, around 3 o'clock in the morning, you hear the starting of the engines. The men were going to work. And then when you knew the men were coming home, you smelled the aroma of food. And then when when the street lights came on in my neighborhood, we had to go inside and do our homework and stuff. So I miss those days, Charlene. I miss those days when my daddy got a check on Friday. And I remember there was a place in Woodrow Wilson where they used to do those meat pies, old meat pies. And I knew we were getting a treat because Daddy got the check from Chrysler. Okay, and so on Saturday was my day and Daddy's day. The tape a little bit and to relax. And every man in that neighborhood was doing the same thing. But what was the unifying thing, the theme of the whole community? The men went to church on Sunday, and the family went to church on Sunday. Seemed like we don't spend time with each other. We're not eating at the table with each other. We're not going to church with one another. I call this the microwave age. And
everybody gets a plate, and I gotta say, same in my family. And sometimes, when my adult son is here, my grandson's here, and we got a good dinner going, on a Sunday or a Saturday, whatever day, and everybody gets a plate and goes to their room because everybody's watching something different on TV. And when I was growing up, you didn't have a TV on during dinner. You talked. Everybody said, "How was your day?" And you ate your food. There were no devices. There was no TV. There was nothing. It was just us, the adults and the children at the table for a meal. And all that seems to have been gone by the wayside because of our lifestyle. But you're talking, and you talk about the Black church, and we can start it right now, and then we can talk about it more after the break. But the series by Henry Louis Gates, Dr. Henry Louis Gates, who is a professor at Harvard. He's a historian. He's an author. He and PBS, Public Service Broadcasting, got together, and they are financing, or they're not financing, they are airing. Johnson & Johnson and some other big corporations paid for a 6-part documentary, which I believe is just really, really very well done. I've watched the first 2 parts. Yesterday I watched part 1 and part 2, and Henry Louis Gates is, on camera. He's narrating. He's traveling all over to these various states in the South, and they've done a great job of getting the old footage and vintage photographs and telling the story of the Black church and how influential the Black church was during slavery times, and then after, and during the Civil War and post-slavery, in influencing the civil rights movement. And I think a lot of people, again, Michael, you know that history. What did you think about the series?
Well, I've seen part of the second installment, and it looks like it's very well done. It's a lot of history there, and it deals with the impact that the African American church has had on African American history, but also the history of this country, the movements that come out of the African American church. I didn't see the first installment, but they probably talked about the church organizing, being part of the abolitionist movement, and helping African Americans escape to freedom. We know the historic Second Baptist Church here in Detroit was the last stop, basically on the Underground Railroad. We look at the church being involved in the civil rights movement, and whether we talk about Dr. King, whether we talk about the organizing of the Montgomery bus boycott, which starts Monday morning, December 5th, 1955, and they're organizing at Holt Street Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. We look at the freedom songs that were sang. They interviewed Rutha Mae Harris, who was one of the freedom singers, and the freedom singers would sing what they call freedom songs, which were many of them gospel hymns that had the lyrics adjusted. And these were songs that they sang in their darkest hours that kept them focused on what it was they were fighting for. They named the songs. Is extremely important for people to understand this. They named the songs that lifted up their spirits and kept them fighting. They named the songs after what it was they were fighting for, not what they were trying to eradicate. So they didn't call the songs Jim Crow songs or racism songs. They called them freedom songs because that's what they were fighting for. You see the role Mahalia Jackson played in the civil rights movement, gospel singer Mahalia Jackson, and how she held concerts to raise money for the civil rights movement, and how she was friends with Dr. King, and in some of Dr. King's darkest hours, she would sing to him. And we know August 28th, 1963, at the March on Washington, Mahalia Jackson was there. She sang, and then when Dr. King is giving his speech, which was originally called Normalcy Never Again, then it was changed and called A Canceled Check. And then it was renamed I Have a Dream later, years later, because that's not the original name of the speech. If you listen to the video, you listen to the audio of Dr. King giving the speech, you hear Mahalia Jackson say, "Tell him about the dream, Martin, tell him about the dream." And then Dr. King shifts and then starts talking about.
Michael, the dream came from a lady in Georgia.
Yeah, I know. I'm coming to that. I got it, Keith. Yeah, I know.
And then Dr. King said, "I'm gonna use that." He put his own
Right.
iteration on it.
Right.
And that's what it's.
I know, but I know, but the speech was not about a dream. Read Clarence B. Jones' article. Read
Stop right there. We're going to stop right there and go to.
Yeah, we got to go to break.
When we come back, we're going to talk more about the Henry Louis Gates PBS documentary. We're also going to talk about the state of politics, Black politics in the nation, in the state of Michigan, city of Detroit. We'll be right back.
Okay. Stand by, everybody. We're on commercial break. I'll be on at 11 p.m. I'm on Charlene Mitchell's show, Mind Your Business, on 9/10. So she's on Thursdays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. So stand by. Stand by, everybody. I'll be back at 11 p.m. for my show. So stand by. I've got it. Thank you. I've got it. Stand by. All right. So on tonight's show, I'm going to talk about there's a African American McDonald's franchisee named Howard Washington, and he's suing McDonald's. He owns right now. He owns 14 McDonald's franchisees, McDonald's franchises. He's suing McDonald's. Herbert Washington, I should say, Herbert Washington. He's suing McDonald's, alleging discrimination. And he's alleging that McDonald's favors white owners, one, and two, denied him the chance to buy stores in more affluent communities. So he has a big lawsuit against McDonald's. He owns 14 McDonald's franchises now. He used to own 27. He was the largest African-American McDonald's franchisee in the country. And he has this big lawsuit. We're going to talk some about this because once again, if you saw my show Wednesday night, where we dealt with the African-American couple that was who was discriminated against when it came to valuing their home in California. And they had a white friend pretend to be the home buyer, and the value of the home was appraised $500,000 higher. We went through and dealt with how racism is a system of advantage and privilege and how it impacts us on different levels. Whether we deal with redlining, bank loans, student loans, all different types of things like this. The racial wage gap. But then we look at opportunities here when it comes to being a franchisee, okay, and how this impacts how we're dealing with racism, how this impacts the racial wealth gap as well. All right, so we'll talk about that story. And then last night, I was going to deal with the story of Senator Cory Booker and Reverend Raphael Warnock. Senator Cory Booker and Reverend Raphael Warnock introduced bills to help African-American farmers. And we talked about this a little bit last night. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about the Justice for Black Farmers Act from Senator Cory Booker and co-sponsored by Senator Elizabeth Warren, where Reverend Raphael Warnock has a bill also to help African-American farmers. So we're going to talk about that as well tonight. We may be able to talk a little bit about Ted Cruz. This punk Ted Cruz goes to Cancun while his state of Texas is being hit with a blizzard. You know, he goes to Cancun with his family and gets caught. Okay, stand by. We're coming back from the break. Stand by, everybody. How's everybody doing? Once again, this is I'm a guest on somebody else's show. Otherwise, I'd be talking more. So stand by.
Your business with Emmy award-winning broadcast journalist Charlene Mitchell.
And welcome back to the last segment of Mind Your Business. I'm your host, Charlene Mitchell. Today is the 14th, or not 14th, that was Valentine's Day. It is the 18th of February, 10 more days left in the month, Black History Month. It might be a short month, but it's a very important month. And as I said earlier, Black history is American history, and it's 365 days a year, 24/7. We are Black, and we appreciate learning the history and to continue to learn the history some of it that we've learned even here tonight with my colleague, my 910 colleague, Michael Imhotep. And we also have, who's been with us, Keith Williams. And joining us now is the publisher of the Detroit Smart Pages, Beverly Smith. And she knows a lot about politics. She has her finger on the pulse of almost everything that's going around in Detroit, everything that's going on. Just ask Beverly. She'll tell you about it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for Charlene, for inviting me.
Beverly, did you get to hear the clip of Austin, the young man who's running for governor, who wants to do away with Black History Month?
Yes, I did. And I don't think I need to say any more about it. Sherry did an excellent job, as well as Michael and Keith. So.
Okay. In other words, he doesn't have any credibility with me, and I don't think he has credibility with most of
anybody else.
Right. So we'll move on. Tell us about your new issue that is out now, and where people can get the paper. And you have a lot of great articles in it.
Yes, the new issue is out now. It's online, actually. DetroitSmartPages.com. That's DetroitSmartPages.com. And we do have it at several locations. As you know, with the pandemic and everything, a lot of the places aren't open, not as many as much foot traffic.
Right. But online, we're used to online now. We love online.
Right. But we do have it. We still have it at those locations. But in case they cannot get to them, they can always go online. And some of the main locations that people know, Joe's Gallery, of course, the Wayne County Community College on 4th Street, NAACP office, Eric I've been trained, all of the churches, Sinai Grace, Julius Cleaners. It's all over. But as I said, most people cannot get out, so it is online. But we have a lot of good information in the paper as usual. I heard earlier Keith and Michael talked about the family. Congratulations, Keith, on your continued work that you're doing. But I wanted to say the Black family is being hardest hit with this pandemic, as we all know. So I do have a lot of information in the paper about wearing face coverings, all about vaccines, anything you wanted to know about the vaccine, any question that you might even want to ask is in the paper about the vaccines, the 2 different kinds, everything you want to know. And I also featured the young lady, Tismikia Corbett, who is the lead scientific researcher, who was one of the main scientists who developed the coronavirus vaccine. And it's not a new vaccine. This particular strand of coronavirus is new, but they've been working on coronavirus vaccines for 6 or 7 years. So that information is in the paper along with a lot of businesses. And it's a good read. So we want everybody to check it out online. And if you can, get to some of the locations to pick it up. It has a lot of good information in it.
Yes, I was, of course, I'm one of your writers, and I have a couple of articles in there.
Years?
Yes.
Many years?
Many years. My Eye on Media is in there every issue. And we also did a story on Reinvent Treasures with the founder of that estate sale company. She's a liquidator, one of the few African Americans who do it on a large scale. So if you know somebody who's moving out of their big house into a smaller place, which a lot of us do as we age, or if you have parents who had to downsize, and you have all this stuff and you don't know what to do with it, it's easy to donate, and it's nice to donate, but it's also nice to turn some of your treasures into cash. And you could make a lot of money. Make a lot of money.
Right. You're talking about our good friend, Anita McCauley.
Anita McCauley, right.
She started Reinvent Treasures about 5 years ago. And as you said, Charlene, she's one of the few Black estate liquidators in the city in this area, period. And she does an excellent job. You can always find her online at reinventtreasures.com, I think it is.
I think it's, is it .com or .org? Might be .org. I'm not sure.
I think it's .com because it's not
okay.
non-profit.
Okay, it's not it's .com. You're correct.
Right.
So I wanted to ask Michael about the importance of, just to segue a little bit from the Black history, but today we've seen what happened to a lot of Black businesses. I was reading some stats the other day, and since COVID, saying that 41% of Black-owned businesses did not survive, compared to 17% of white-owned businesses. Those statistics are so troubling.
Well, it's even worse now because those statistics that came out from the New York Federal Reserve in August of 2020, but they were looking at as of April 2020. So when you read the article from Forbes.com dealing with how almost half of Black small businesses have gone out of business, they were looking at data that was looking at April 2020. Okay, we're almost a year later. So now it's at least 50% of African-American owned businesses have gone out of business, if not a little bit more. So what we're dealing with is the devastating impact of, one, mishandling the coronavirus pandemic. Two, because and this ties into politics. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. And this is what happens when you have somebody incompetent in the White House, and then that tanks the economy. And what people have to understand is that politics and laws regulate the economy that your African American business depends upon to survive and thrive in. All right. So now we're dealing with a situation. Now we're dealing with a situation where we're hoping to get the $1.9 trillion stimulus, or not stimulus. It's a pandemic bill, another pandemic bill, and we're looking at getting more dollars targeted to save African American owned businesses. So we're looking at a dire situation, and on the other side of this pandemic, there's going to be a massive number of evictions and foreclosures also. Okay, but this once again stresses why it's important to have competent leadership in elected office.
Okay, I'm stopping right there. So do we have? Okay, go ahead, Keith.
I'm not in the doom and gloom business. And the Bible said, weeping may endure for a night and joy in the morning. There's joy coming around this corner, but black folks got to come together, put our resources together, and start saving our own selves instead of waiting for the government to give us a handout or a check that's only going to be a temporary feel-good situation. This is about longevity with me. God has given us some beautiful talent, the music, to writing, to athletics, and we need to recapture our state. We're the only race that don't benefit from our race. Everybody else benefit off of but us. And so I'm not going to sit back and dwell on, COVID hit us real fast. Yes, we got some difficult days ahead. But guess what? Martin Luther King said, it don't matter to me now because he's seen the mountaintop. That mountaintop is us. We got to grab our space back, put our money together, and start doing the start thing within our community. That those businesses that are the businesses, we should be putting our resources to lift those businesses back up.
It sounds good, but can it happen, Beverly?
I just wanted to say that I don't think that we were saying, we weren't really doing, Keith, we were just saying the actual facts of what is actually. And I agree with you. Right. And I agree we want to uplift. That's why we're talking about it, so that we can we can do the things that we need to uplift. And as you guys said before, if you're not voting the right leadership into the right offices, especially locally, that's where we began with any kind of politics, is the local politics. We won't have anything. We can take our own city for an example. We have an election coming up. We have another person that threw their head in the ring for the mayor of this city. We have to look at a total picture of what's going on in our communities as close to us right here at home. So,
and that's another article that's in your your paper, your new paper. If you're speaking of Anthony Adams, I read his.
Right.
I think he wrote the article about why he wants to be mayor, and he kind of bullet pointed a lot of things. And so I think that's good for people to read. And Keith, I mean, you're involved in politics. I know your wife is an elected official. You're an elected. You know, you guys are all, you know, Kathy Garrett. Everybody loves Kathy Garrett.
I love her.
But is there pressure on you because of her position, your position, to always stand behind a particular candidate, or do you feel that you can make your own decisions and, you know, support whoever you want to support?
You know, I believe in being free and to be able to control my own destiny. See, I'm a former Wayne County Commissioner. And when I listen to these folks out here talking about they running for office and all this other stuff, I've been there. I was written off, and I found a way to win. And so what I'm saying to you, I understand what I'm looking for and what the community looking for. And the bottom line is this. I'll make my own decision, but at the Black Caucus, that's a different story. We have a process that we go through. And when our process goes through, we go through our process, then we start looking at what kind of person that we want to support. And to me right now, I'm not feeling the political structure because they have lost what this is all about.
Okay, I'm going to stop you. What do you mean you're not feeling the political structure? What are you talking about? Who are you talking about?
What I'm saying to me right now, I'm looking for an inspirational leader. I'm looking for somebody. Are you talking when you say you're not feeling? I gotta put you in a corner right now. Are you talking about Mike Duggan, who's the current mayor? Are you not feeling him? I'm talking about the whole political structure. It's because we don't. There's no vision for life after the pandemic. There's nobody talking about the greatness in our city. I said the other day, you know what I said, Charlene? Detroit is one boring such and such city, okay? And I'm looking for the leadership to inspire these folks to get out to do the best for themselves. When I was a county commissioner, those folks knew that I was going to take care of them. They knew that I had ideas that I could tell them, and I delivered on my ideas. I haven't seen it. I've seen stuff on paper. I've seen rhetoric, but it's about that person's history. Whatever you did in your history that's going to dictate, that's going to make me feel that you are our God.
Well, let me say one thing. Okay, we have a little bit of time, and we got a lot more to cover. One great thing that I think we're going to see is the Motown Museum expansion. That is huge. That is not boring. That's historical. That's going to bring tourism to a much higher level. And it's going to give Detroiters something to be really proud of, because it's not just going to be the little house on the boulevard anymore. And a lot of money is going into it.
Charlene, but I grew up in Detroit. Every church was a Motown. The talent that came from the Black church. That's where the Temptation, anybody in the Motown, we're not connecting. They get us a building, but we need to get back to the talent aspect of it.
I think that's one thing that Robin Terry is trying to do. She was just on Channel 4 talking about that. You know, preserving the history of Motown, but recruiting young talent. They just had a big talent show. They're doing things. They're giving big prizes. She's trying to do that. By the way, she was my student at Southfield High School when I was running the radio station. That shows my age. And now she's, you know, running the Motown Museum. But yeah, I mean, we want to look at the bright side. Michael, what are you thinking in terms of Detroit's future with Black businesses and being able to bring more people back into the city and not give up on it? Because right now they're calling it Gilbert Town.
Gilbert Town? Yeah. Well, yeah. You have to, if you're talking about mayor, you have to have somebody who's committed to African Americans in the city of Detroit and supporting African American owned businesses. One of the ways to do that is dealing with increasing the percentage of city contracts that go to African American owned businesses. Okay, not minorities, but specifically African American owned businesses, and holding holding the forums, holding the workshops that demystify the whole city contractor process, because oftentimes that is a complicated process. And this is one of the things that they tried to do in previous administrations, was to try to demystify that process and bring in more African-American businesses. And some of the businesses are going to have to merge together so they can pull together their resources. But you're going to have somebody who's committed to African Americans in this city and African American owned businesses, and this is somebody who we're going to have to support and finance as well.
Why do you think? And this is going to be a pointed question. I want to start with Michael, then go to Beverly, then to Keith. How was Mike Duggan able to win twice in a city that is predominantly African American, and he came from Livonia? He managed to wiggle his way through, and he was voted in twice.
Okay, if you're going to me first, and then I'm going to have to cut out after this because my show's on at 11.
Your show on right after mine.
Right, exactly, right here on 19. A lot of it had to do with, this may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. I refer to him as Jesus from Livonia, because a lot of people thought the Savior was returning to save Black people, and he was coming from Livonia. Okay, so they were looking outside of themselves to save themselves, and a lot of people fell for it. And then when our homes are overtaxed $600 million, some of those same people are crying. So it's like we didn't understand what was going to come. See, gentrification was hitting hard after Duggan got into office. And gentrification in general does not benefit the majority of African Americans in a city like this. That pushes us out of the city. Okay, so a lot of that had to do with really not understanding history and not seeing these signs, and not understanding like the urban renewal that took place in the 50s and 60s and brought about the deindustrialization of the inner cities, and not really understanding that history and what was to come.
Well, thank you, Michael. I know you.
Okay, all right, thanks, Charlene. Y'all take care.
We'll get off on time so you can start on time.
Okay, thanks.
Beverly, what?
Okay, guys, look, I'll be back at 11. I have to get ready for my show. Okay. Thanks for tuning in. I was on Charlene Mitchell's show. It wasn't my show. My show will be back on in a few minutes. We'll be back 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay. For the African History Network show. I have to get ready for my show. Talk to y'all later. Peace.